For years my parents defended my brother no matter how much he bullied and lied about me, and then they demanded he share the spotlight at my wedding. What happened that night exposed him to the entire family forever. When people ask me if I was close with my family growing up, I never know how to answer. If close means sharing walls, meals, and last names, then yes, we were close. If close means love, fairness, or respect, then no. Absolutely not. I grew up in a small house in Ohio with my parents and my older brother, Ethan. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal family. My mom liked to brag about her garden, my dad always had a half-finished home project in the garage, and Ethan was the charming golden boy they couldn't stop praising. Me? I was the shadow. The scapegoat. The kid who could do everything right and still somehow be wrong. Ethan was only 2 years older, but you'd think he was the center of the universe. From the moment we were little, the rules bent around him. If he broke a vase, I got blamed for distracting him. If he punched me, I got scolded for making him angry. If I cried, my dad would sigh and say, "Stop being dramatic. You know your brother doesn't mean it." But Ethan did mean it. He meant every shove, every insult, every little sabotage. And he thrived because he knew he could get away with it. I have this vivid memory from when I was 8. Ethan had taken my favorite stuffed rabbit and hidden it in the freezer overnight. By the time I found it, the fur was stiff with ice, the seams cracked. I burst into tears. My mom came in, saw the rabbit on the counter, and instead of scolding him, she said, "You're too old to be attached to toys anyway." Then she gave Ethan ice cream as if he deserved a treat. That was my childhood in one scene. By the time I was 10, Ethan had turned torment into an art form. He would sneak into my room and rip pages out of my diary, then read them out loud at the dinner table while my parents chuckled. He'd eat the snacks I saved from lunch and laugh while I got scolded for forgetting to eat. Once, he even told the neighbor's kid I had lice, and for weeks no one wanted to play with me at school. My parents called it boys being boys, even though I was the one humiliated. And me? I learned early that fighting back only made things worse. If I yelled, I was temperamental. If I pushed him away, I was violent. If I told the truth, I was making up stories. So I started bottling it all inside. As we got older, Ethan's cruelty evolved. By middle school, he had discovered lying was his most powerful weapon. He would tell my parents I skipped class when I hadn't. He'd hide my homework and claim I was lazy. He once broke my phone charger and told my mom I threw it in anger. She grounded me for a week. The unfairness of it ate at me. I started doubting myself, wondering if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I really was dramatic, lazy, ungrateful. My parents' constant siding with him made me question my own reality. That's the most dangerous thing, when abuse gets in your head so deep you think it's your fault. One of the lowest moments came when I was 13. Ethan had stolen $20 from my dad's wallet. I saw him do it. When Dad noticed the money missing, Ethan immediately said, "She took it." My dad stormed into my room, ripped open my drawers, and when he didn't find the cash, he still grounded me. Ethan stood in the doorway smirking. Later that night, he flicked the bill in front of me like it was a trophy. I wanted to scream. But I stayed quiet, because screaming never saved me. High school didn't make things better. If anything, it gave Ethan new tools. He spread rumors about me dating older guys, called me pathetic in front of his friends, and once told my crush that I wet the bed until I was 12. Not true, but of course, he made sure people believed it. When I actually did start dating a sweet boy named Ryan, Ethan went out of his way to ruin it. He cornered Ryan in the locker room and told him I was crazy and obsessed. Ryan broke up with me the next day without even explaining why. I found out later it was because Ethan threatened to tell everyone fake stories if he didn't. That was Ethan in a nutshell. If I ever found happiness, he found a way to poison it. And my parents? They stayed blind. Worse than blind, willfully ignorant. Ethan's protective of you, my mom once said when I told her he scared off Ryan. Protective? He wasn't protecting me. He was destroying me, piece by piece. At school, I worked twice as hard just to prove I was worth something. Straight A's, advanced classes, extracurriculars. My parents barely noticed. When Ethan passed a class by the skin of his teeth, they threw him a dinner party. When I won an art competition, they said, "That's nice, dear," and changed the subject. By then, I had stopped expecting fairness. I just focused on escape. College became my dream, my lifeline. I spent late nights filling out applications, applying for scholarships, doing everything I could to earn my own future. I knew if I relied on my parents, Ethan would find a way to ruin it. When the acceptance letter came, I hid it in my backpack for 3 days before showing them. My mom glanced at it and said, "That's great." My dad shrugged. Ethan snatched it from my hand, scanned it, and said, "Bet you'll drop out in the first semester." I smiled through clenched teeth and thought, "We'll see." Those last months at home were brutal. Ethan seemed to sense I was slipping away from his control. He ramped up his tactics, hiding my car keys, deleting my emails, accidentally spilling soda on my laptop. But nothing stopped me. I was going to leave. And I did. College was the first breath of freedom I'd ever known. For the first time, I wasn't constantly compared, belittled, or sabotaged. I could just be me. But the scars of growing up with Ethan didn't vanish overnight. I jumped whenever someone raised their voice. I apologized for things that weren't my fault. I had a hard time trusting anyone, always bracing for betrayal. Still, I started to heal. I made friends. I found professors who encouraged my art. And one day, in the library, I met Alex, the man who would change my life. He was kind in a way that didn't feel performative. He asked questions and actually listened. He laughed at my jokes, even the dumb ones. He walked me home after study sessions, not because he wanted anything, but because he cared if I got back safe. It was strange at first, being treated like I mattered. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to turn into another Ethan. But Alex wasn't like that. He was steady, patient, and most of all, genuine. By the time senior year rolled around, we were inseparable. And when he proposed after graduation, I cried like I hadn't cried in years, not from pain, but from finally being chosen for the right reasons. Of course, my family wasn't done. Ethan wasn't done. He'd find a way to turn even my wedding into a battlefield. But that part of the story comes later. Planning a wedding is supposed to be stressful, but I thought it would be the fun kind of stress: flowers, colors, playlists. And in the beginning, it was. Alex and I made Pinterest boards, toured venues, and laughed about how neither of us knew the difference between ivory and cream. But the moment my family got involved, everything turned sour. It started with my mom. "You should let Ethan walk you down the aisle," she said one night on the phone. I nearly dropped my tea. What? Why would Ethan walk me? Dad's still here, and Alex's dad already offered to share that honor. She sighed like I was being difficult. "You know how sensitive your brother is. He's older than you, it would mean a lot to him." I bit my tongue to keep from saying what I really wanted to. Ethan doesn't deserve to walk me anywhere. Instead, I said, "That's not happening, Mom. This is my wedding." She huffed but let it go, or so I thought. A week later, Ethan called me directly. "So, when do we go for tux fittings?" I blinked at the phone. "What tux fittings?" "For me," he said, like it was obvious. "I assume I'll be in the same style as Alex. I don't want to upstage him, but people should know I'm important too." My jaw literally dropped. "Ethan, you're not in the wedding party. You're a guest. That's it." Silence. Then he laughed, sharp and cruel. "You're kidding, right? I'm your brother. You really think people will respect this wedding if I'm not front and center?" I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. But that was just the beginning. The next time I visited my parents, the ambush was ready. Ethan sat at the dining table in smug silence while my mom laid out their proposal. "Sweetheart," she began, "we've been thinking. It would be so meaningful if Ethan walked ahead of you, sort of like a second groom. You know, to show the family bond." I nearly choked. "A second groom? Are you insane?" My dad chimed in for the first time. "It's just symbolic. Let him share the spotlight. You've always had the attention, give your brother this one thing." I laughed bitterly. "I've always had the attention? You've defended him my entire life. And now you want my wedding too?" Ethan smirked. "Come on, sis. Don't be selfish. I deserve this. You get the husband. I just want the experience." I stared at him, stunned. "You want to cosplay as the groom at my wedding?" He shrugged like it was no big deal. "Why not? People will love it." That's when I realized they weren't joking. They actually expected me to agree. I left that night shaking with rage. Alex found me crying in the car when I pulled into our driveway. "What happened?" he asked, pulling me close. I told him everything, every insane detail. When I finished, he sat back, stunned. Then he burst out laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous he couldn't believe it was real. "Your brother wants to be the second groom?" he said between incredulous chuckles. "What the hell is wrong with them?" "Everything," I muttered. "Absolutely everything." Alex sobered quickly. "Okay. We'll play this smart. If they want to make demands, we'll let them think they're winning. We'll string them along just long enough to get what we need." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Let them pay for as much of the wedding as possible. Venue, catering, decorations. We'll act agreeable, nod at their stupid ideas, and then when the day comes, we'll do it our way. No second groom. No Ethan stunt. Just us. The idea lit something inside me: hope, mischief, justice. For once, we could beat them at their own game. So we did. When my mom insisted Ethan would look so handsome in a matching tux, I nodded and said, "You're right, Mom. Let's talk about colors." Meanwhile, Alex and I quietly ordered tuxes only for his groomsmen. When my dad said, "It'll mean so much to see Ethan walk the aisle before you," I smiled tightly and said, "We'll see what we can do." Meanwhile, our officiant got clear instructions: absolutely no brother involved. When Ethan bragged to cousins about how he'd be standing beside Alex during the ceremony, I bit my tongue and let him dig his own grave. Behind the scenes, Alex and I secured every contract, every detail, with our names and our choices. The venue? Ours. The playlist? Ours. The guest list? Ours. My parents thought they were in control, but really, they were just paying the bill while we planned the real wedding. In the months leading up to the big day, Ethan got bolder. He posted on Facebook about sharing the spotlight. He hinted that he'd be wearing something special. He even bragged to one of Alex's cousins that this wedding will make history. I wanted to scream every time I heard it. But Alex would squeeze my hand and whisper, "Patience. Let him dig deeper." And dig he did. At the rehearsal dinner, Ethan strutted around like a celebrity, telling everyone how he'd be part of the procession. He even tried to give a speech about brotherly bonds. Alex and I exchanged a look but stayed quiet. Let him think. Let him believe. Because the real show was yet to come. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. Not from nerves about marrying Alex, that part felt right, solid. I couldn't wait to walk down the aisle to him. No, what kept me awake was imagining Ethan's face when reality hit. I pictured the smug smile fading, the confusion dawning, the rage boiling over when he realized he'd been lied to. For once, the lies were on our side. Alex must have been awake too, because around 3 a.m., he whispered, "Tomorrow, we win." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear, like the world itself was giving me a fresh start. My stomach fluttered with nerves, but not for the usual reasons. I wasn't worried about vows or tripping in my heels. I was waiting for the moment Ethan would finally crash headfirst into reality. Hair, makeup, dress, it all blurred past in a haze. My bridesmaids buzzed with excitement, snapping pictures, helping me into the gown. Mom poked her head in once, beaming with pride, already talking about how Ethan will look so handsome walking down before you. I bit my cheek to keep from smirking. Because today, Ethan wasn't getting anything he thought he would. At the venue, guests milled around, sipping champagne, complimenting the flowers. Ethan strutted from group to group in a tux he'd bought himself, jet black with a flashy silver tie. He wasn't matching Alex's classic navy at all, but he didn't care. He bragged loudly about how he'd be part of the procession, about how people will talk about this for years. I overheard my aunt whisper to another relative, "It's strange, isn't it? Why is he acting like the groom?" I smiled to myself. Just wait. Alex and I had rehearsed everything with the officiant, the coordinator, even the DJ. Everyone was in on it except Ethan and my parents. The ceremony began. Guests took their seats, music swelled. My bridesmaids glided down the aisle, then Alex's groomsmen. Ethan rose confidently from his seat in the second row, smoothing his jacket, ready to take his rightful place. But when he tried to step into the aisle, the coordinator blocked him with a polite smile. "Please take your seat, sir. Procession is beginning." Ethan blinked, confused. No, I'm part of this. I'm supposed to walk." The coordinator didn't budge. "Please sit down." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My parents leaned forward in their seats, frowning. Ethan's face turned red. And then the music shifted. Everyone rose, turning toward the back. There I was, arm in arm with my dad and Alex's father, walking down the aisle the way we'd planned all along. Ethan's jaw dropped. The smirk vanished. I'll never forget the look on his face: outrage, humiliation, disbelief. He tried to push past the coordinator again, but two ushers stepped in quietly, steering him back to his seat. The whispers grew louder. Guests shot him puzzled looks. My aunt shook her head, my cousins snickered behind their programs. Ethan had wanted the spotlight. He got it, but not the way he expected. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Alex's vows made me cry, mine made him laugh through his tears. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the room erupted with cheers. For once, the focus was exactly where it should be, on us, not Ethan. But he couldn't stand it. At the reception, Ethan tried to salvage his pride. During cocktails, he cornered me. What the hell was that? You promised I'd be part of it. I met his glare head on. I never promised you anything. You assumed. And now you look like a fool. He sputtered, looking around as if someone would rescue him. But no one did. Not even my mom. By dinner, Ethan was sulking so hard people avoided him. He downed glass after glass of wine, muttering under his breath. My dad tried to lecture me between courses, whispering, "You embarrassed your brother." I leaned close and said, "No, Dad. He embarrassed himself." Then I walked away before he could answer. The real meltdown came during the speeches. Alex's best man delivered a hilarious toast that had the room roaring. My maid of honor gave a heartfelt one that left me in tears. Then, as the DJ was about to announce dancing, Ethan staggered to the microphone. "Everyone listen up," he slurred, clutching his glass. "You don't know the truth. This wedding is a sham. My sister lied to all of you. I was supposed to be part of this. I was promised." Gasps scattered across the room. The DJ looked panicked. My mom buried her face in her hands. Ethan pointed at Alex. "You think you're special? You think you're the only groom here? I should be standing up there too." The room went silent for half a beat, then exploded into laughter. Not the laughter he wanted. Guests doubled over, covering their mouths. My cousins recorded on their phones. Someone shouted, "Sit down, you idiot." Ethan's face twisted with fury. He threw his glass to the floor, stormed out of the hall, and slammed the door so hard the chandeliers rattled. It was the loudest, most public humiliation he'd ever faced. And he'd done it all to himself. After that, the night was pure joy. We danced, we ate, we celebrated. Every time I caught sight of my parents, they looked smaller, diminished. Their golden boy had tarnished himself in front of everyone, and there was no way to spin it. Late in the evening, Alex and I slipped outside for a breather. The air was cool, the stars bright. He pulled me close and whispered, "We did it." And he was right. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had won. Not just the wedding, not just the battle, but the war Ethan had been waging against me since childhood. This time, he didn't get away with it. The morning after the wedding, I woke up next to Alex in our hotel suite with a sore face from smiling too much. For once, my cheeks ached not from holding back tears but from genuine happiness. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, soft and golden, and for the first time in years, I felt free. But I knew the peace wouldn't last. My family wasn't the type to take humiliation quietly. Sure enough, by the time we checked out, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from my mom. Angry texts from my dad. A string of incoherent messages from Ethan. I turned the phone off. For the entire honeymoon, I refused to look at any of it. Alex and I flew to Mexico, lounged on beaches, explored ruins, ate too much food, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. I let myself exist without my family's shadow for the first time, and it was intoxicating. When we got back 2 weeks later, reality waited at the doorstep like an unwanted package. I finally turned my phone on, bracing myself. The first voicemail was from my mom, crying about how I had set Ethan up to fail and how I had ruined the family's reputation. The next was from my dad, furious, saying I'd shamed them in front of relatives who traveled across states. Then Ethan's long, rambling rants about betrayal, about how I had stolen his chance, about how I owed him for embarrassing him. I sat on the couch with Alex listening, my hands trembling with both anger and relief. Because here's the thing, their rage only confirmed I'd done the right thing. Alex wrapped his arm around me and said, "You don't owe them anything. Not anymore." And for once, I believed it. Word spread quickly among extended family. My aunts, uncles, cousins, they all saw Ethan's meltdown firsthand. Videos from the reception floated around group chats. One clip of him screaming into the mic went borderline viral in our circle. Relatives who once worshipped him now sent me quiet messages of support. "Good for you," one cousin texted. "He had it coming." Another aunt called to say, "I always suspected your parents favored him too much. Now everyone knows." It felt strange, almost surreal, to have people finally acknowledge what I'd lived through my whole life. Validation is a powerful thing, even when it comes late. But my parents? They doubled down. When Alex and I hosted a small dinner a month later, they showed up uninvited. My dad demanded we apologize to Ethan. "You humiliated him on purpose," he accused, slamming his fist on the table. I stood tall, heart pounding but steady. "No. He humiliated himself. All we did was give him enough rope." My mom burst into tears, wailing about losing both her children. I almost laughed. I'd never truly been theirs to lose, not in the way a daughter should be cherished. We asked them to leave. They went, but not without threats of cutting me out completely. The irony stung. I'd been cut out emotionally my entire life. They just didn't realize I'd already moved on. As for Ethan, his downfall only grew. Word of his antics spread beyond the family. His boss heard about it. Apparently one of my cousins gleefully shared the video, and he was quietly let go from his job a few months later. His friends stopped inviting him out. Even the people who used to laugh at his jokes started keeping their distance. For the first time, Ethan had no one to blame but himself. He sent me emails, each more desperate than the last. First, rage, "You ruined me." Then pity, "I have nothing, please help." Finally, attempts at guilt, "You're my sister, you can't just abandon me." I didn't answer a single one. Building a life without them wasn't easy, but it was liberating. Alex and I moved into a cozy townhouse. We painted the walls ourselves, choosing colors no one else had a say in. We hosted friends, filled our weekends with laughter, and began making traditions that belonged only to us. For the first time, I understood what family could mean, not control, not manipulation, but love and choice. Still, sometimes, the old doubts crept in. On quiet nights, I'd wonder if I'd gone too far. If maybe I'd been cruel. If maybe I should give them one more chance. Then I'd remember Ethan's smug face when he thought he'd take my wedding. I'd remember my parents clapping along, enabling him as they always had. I'd remember my mother's voice saying, "Don't be selfish. Give your brother this one thing." And I'd remember how good it felt to finally say no. Months turned into a year. Invitations to family gatherings stopped coming. My parents posted stiff, performative photos on Facebook, just them and Ethan, smiling too wide, captions about family first. Extended relatives rolled their eyes behind the scenes. Meanwhile, my life flourished. Work promotions came. Alex and I adopted a goofy dog who chewed everything in sight but loved us unconditionally. Our home was loud with joy instead of conflict. One day, out of nowhere, I got a letter. Handwritten. From Ethan. He wrote pages about how he'd been depressed, how people mocked him, how our parents still babied him but couldn't fix his reputation. He begged for another chance. I read it once, then burned it in the fireplace. Because here's the truth, some people don't change. Some people only want you back so they can drag you down again. I didn't need to learn that lesson twice. Looking back now, I realize my wedding wasn't just about marrying Alex. It was about reclaiming myself. For years, I was the girl in Ethan's shadow, the scapegoat, the one my parents dismissed. That day, I stepped into the light and let the world see the truth. And even though it cost me my family, I don't regret it. Not for a second. Because sometimes, family isn't who raises you. It's who stands by you. And in Alex, in the friends we've made, in the little life we're building together, I finally found what I always deserved.